going into her by her model runs or, any of those cams, I guess, if you want to talk about the RRFS moving forward. Um, I mean, granted, it's, I don't think it's quite where it needs to be yet, but, I definitely leaned on the HRRR when it first came out. I forget what year that was. It was like right when I first started chasing, really, or earlier in my chasing when the HRRR her really first launched, and it's very easy to just like keep every hour like going through it, and just going with the slider on composite reflectivity, and then ultimately I think breaking that cycle kind of the moment I close my laptop in the morning of a chase and I'm like kind of in go mode, I'm pretty much only looking at observational type metrics, so visible satellite, um, you know, surface observations, that type of stuff. And that's kind of something because at that point I should have a strong enough idea of what the setup is at that point to basically carry the thing forward.
Love it. And then, Ethan, you can go ahead and start that presentation whenever you are ready. I've got my video turned off so that you don't have to look at me while that's all taking place. And all of you who did transition with us over on YouTube, we appreciate you. You can ask your questions in the Q&A button that I'm about to drop at the bottom of the chat. And then, of course, people on Discord, you already know the rules. Just go ahead and get your questions into the group coaching questions channel. There'll be an embed that occasionally pops up in the chat that'll give you access to that. And the questions can be about anything. They can be about Ethan's presentation. They can be about what he does to get such incredible hair in the morning when he wakes up. How does he got to work out? Anything in between, anything you guys can think of. So without further ado, Ethan, take it away.
Yeah, so this is a topic that I've wanted to do for a little while, and I think there were a couple requests for it too at a certain period of time. And that's chasing geography, because at least within the Great Plains, it's like we all think of it as like this great flat expanse, but if you actually kind of break it down region by region, there's actually great variability and little quirks in each place. So I figured to take the opportunity to kind of discuss some of the areas that are worth noting in the Great Plains. Um, just as we kind of get into this, first and foremost, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to kind of outline a general region, talk about some of the geographic characteristics and some of the meteorological tendencies. These are personally purely anecdotal observations over my time, the past 11 years now of chasing. So I don't really have any strong empirical evidence to back these claims. This is just personal bias and what forth. Couple of disclaimers, looking primarily at traditional chase countries, so the central United States, um, but leaving opportunity to do kind of a more expanded look at down the line. Starting in the US only, sorry, Canada. And yeah, using personal observations and examples. And this is not going to be all encompassing, as there are some subregions within some of the highlighted areas. And I'm leaving some room for a part two down the line if requested. So let's just dive right into this, starting with classic, your early 90s, the early days of storm chasing, which is, kind of the Oklahoma into northern Texas, and even southern Kansas corridor, um, which, especially that west of I-35 stretch between Wichita, Oklahoma City, and Dallas, very chaseable country, and great roads, good views. The main, I would say, drawback from this area is just the convergence standpoint, especially nowadays with chaser convergence being more and more of a prevalent issue. There's definitely a heart, I mean, Oklahoma City is the mecca of storm chasing. So you're naturally going to get a large convergence of chasers, especially early season, especially like, that first real Southern Plains chase of the season, and even peak season, come May time. Some of the meteorological tendencies, dry lines, secondary surface lows, those types of setups are the kinds that, are spawning, those classic tornado outbreaks. Couple photo examples. Some of these photos aren't exactly not really featuring the best storm photos. I kind of wanted to talk about like kind of just the view of the terrain that you could expect just from a general storm spotting perspective. So this one here is in southern Kansas. Uh, this one other here is also Kansas, and then this one's Oklahoma. So you can kind of get the pretty flat, a little bit of terrain undulation. At least this one in southern Kansas. Some tree cover, but overall great, good road network. Pretty middle of the road in terms of chase country, in terms of having great, nice, wide open views in order to see things. Moving on down, we're going to kind of slide over a bit into western Texas, in an area effectively known as the Caprock, named after this giant plateau that sits in western Texas and eastern New Mexico, kind of south of the Canadian River here that cuts through the Texas Panhandle and into New Mexico. For reference, I-40 kind of runs along here. Just north of the Caprock. Amarillo is pretty much right about there. So it is one of my favorite places in the world to chase. I'll be, hand up, going to be a little bit of personal bias here, but it's quite literally flatter than a pancake. It is, the highlight of the Southern High Plains, in my opinion. It's got a fantastic road network, both from a dirt road and farm road perspective. This part of Texas has a number of well-maintained farm roads that are generally mostly paved. I will say once you get kind of past this highlighted stretch of New Mexico, the further west you go, you're kind of heading towards like the not San Gabriel, that's California. Santa Clara, Santa something. I'm completely blanking on the mountain range out here. Someone will correct me, but it's those mountains, and especially also once you get south into kind of the more Permian Basin, which we'll talk about in a minute. Um, One of the downsides to this area, dust. Dust can be a big problem. But sometimes it lends, if you have multiple days, which this area can be, if you just have good, strong westerly flow, which I've noted here, just light 30 knots of west or southwesterly 500 millibar flow, that can always get the job done as long as you have moisture out there and some sort of boundary feature. You can never count out a 2% out this way. And the orthographic lift, so your terrain generated lift, is always a possibility out here. Kind of along this eastern edge that I highlighted is the Caprock Escarpment. So naturally, if you're getting any sort of easterly component with wind at the surface here, it's going to be rising off of the terrain here. So the Caprock is just incredible. Here are a couple highlights here. This one on the left is New Mexico, and the other two here are Texas. I threw in this one down here just to really highlight how much dust can be a factor. You can even kind of see it in these other two photos, like this tornado is condensing and the dust is very apparent on the ground there. And then you're getting dust being inhaled by this storm in eastern New Mexico. This is just outside Clovis. This one's Littlefield, and this is La Mesa, Texas, which is right on the cusp of getting towards Permian Basin territory. But as you can notice, the foregrounds are the main thing that I wanted to point out in these photos. Anyway, like I said, flat as a pancake, virtually no trees, and great roads for chasing. And it's just a storm chaser's paradise as far as I'm concerned. Chasing in the Caprock always lends to a good time. Excuse me for a sec. Working our way a little bit more south into Texas and southeastern New Mexico, the Permian Basin. Pretty much the best way I can describe the Permian Basin is if you've ever watched the show Landman, that's the Permian Basin basically. That whole show is shot in that whole Odessa Midland area. So the terrain increasingly variable past the Caprock. So as you kind of get south and you're getting closer even to the Big Bend region of uh, Texas, and you're getting more into kind of these really big valleys or even hill country to the southeast, you're losing that flatness, and the road network also begins to deteriorate. You're not getting as many farm roads. There's some roads for like oil access and stuff like that, but The main thing to kind of take away here is you're kind of losing that golden regime that you have of the Caprock. And oh, my bad. And I've found that more often than not, like the types of supercells you get down here are large southeast moving hailers. And if you're getting real far south, Fort Stockton is technically not quite the Permian Basin. It's a little further south of it, but quite frankly, the tornadoes when it really shouldn't. And so, I mean, I don't really have a good way to discern. It's like you just get tornadoes out of the most insane inverted V profiles where your temperatures are 90, but your dew point is 45 for some reason. But here's a kind of a look at some of the terrain you can kind of notice in the Permian Basin. So if we kind of look in the foreground here, big thing, and this gets more and more prevalent, especially as we get into hill country, which is the next kind of area to highlight. All this kind of shrubbery, you get more of this type of stuff going on. A lot of pump jacks and stuff like that. I'm surprised I didn't include a photo with a pump jack in the foreground. But you can kind of see this is far southeastern New Mexico. This is kind of near Artesia. If you're familiar with it's just up the road from Carlsbad, and you can kind of see terrain becoming more and more of a thing in this region. And like I said, definitely not as favorable as the Caprock, and you kind of get these big hailing storms, and dust once again is an issue. As you can see, this supercell over here, it's not tornadoing. This is a pretty high base storm, and it's just ingesting a bunch of dust. All right, the hill country. Getting down really now, like this is like starting to get into unfriendly chase country, in my opinion. Once you get back towards I-35, then you're dealing with metros, so like San Antonio, Austin. Not exactly fun. I kind of, I don't really chase the I-35 stretch between DFW and San Antonio. It's just the highways there are some of the most congested in the nation, and it's really hard. A lot of residential areas along that whole stretch of highway. So it's just not, it doesn't make much sense to chase out that region. But into hill country, you're getting those rolling hits. It lives up to the expectation. Hills, rolling standstill hills, and the tree cover starts to really increase as well. And the road network really gets frustrating at this point. And then my personal experience, most of the time, you get these really large HP southeast moving supercells, sometimes tornadic. I've had a couple small tornadoes that I've gotten before they've become truly rain wrapped in the hill country. But the main thing that I've kind of wanted to talk about here is that flash flooding is a major concern in hill country. It's part of Flash Flood Alley, if you're familiar with the term. If you're familiar with like the Guadalupe River, which flooded again recently. So it's worth noting that I've had multiple instances where I've had roads completely get turn into rivers in front of me at low points. More than anywhere else, I would say, in my storm chasing experiences, that the hill country just loves the flash flood. So that's something to always be mindful of, and it floods quickly once these storms pass. Here's a couple photos just to kind of give you a sense of terrain that you're dealing with. So we can see in all these photos here, trees really starting to become more and more of an issue. And you can kind of get the sense that like I'm kind of having to play high spots of terrain in order to see anything. You can't really get a good sense of terrain undulation here, but you can kind of see maybe very off in the distance there. That's a high point on a hill. So really battling in the hill country in order to get decent sight lines. All right, we're going to start working our way up north a little bit more. We're going to get into the high plains, at least the classic high plains. You can kind of break this area up into different categories as well, even into Texas. Um, so the high plains, it's not talking about north, it's talking about the elevation of the ground. So if you actually took a cross section of the United States here, so if we're looking at the terrain profile, or we'll look at Kansas, for example, close to like the Missouri River here, the it's actually pretty low. It's like, around it's below 1,000 feet, I'm pretty sure, in terms of like, Kansas City area. But as you start going west on I-70 here through Kansas, turns into a giant ski ramp. And by the time you reach Goodland all the way on the western border with Colorado, you're almost at 4,000 feet in elevation. So this thing just slowly ramps up, ramps up, ramps up, ramps up. And then by the time you're in Colorado or Cheyenne, or if like you're off the Front Range in Denver, Cheyenne is at I believe around 6,000 feet. Denver, Mile High City, obviously. So, um, you're dealing with really high elevation, which comes into play from a dew point perspective. If you're rising in terrain, the less dew point, the lower dew point temperature you need in order to condense. So 50s gets the dew done. With that, you also kind of get the upslope regime where you naturally going to have, kind of this terrain or enhancing your flow at the surface and introducing lifting mechanisms that you wouldn't traditionally see in other areas of the plains. Kind of a more seasonal trend that it also has is it tends to be more active in the El Nino area or El Nino oscillation phase. Um, it's been quiet for the past couple of years, I would say. 2023 was a really great high plains year. I would say that was the last great high plains year. But yeah, it's just a great place for storm chasing. Here, kind of, this is the Oklahoma Panhandle slash. I'm not sure if I'm like on the line with Kansas when this photo was shot. This is McCook, Nebraska, and over here is near Pine Bluffs, Wyoming. So, just great, beautiful storms. And as you can see, nice and flat, no trees, unobstructed views. Some areas, yeah, a little more rolly hill type than other places, but no concern in terms of obstructions. Just an awesome place to chase. I love chasing the high plains. Getting into the Missouri River Valley. So, rolling hills, slightly more tree covered, especially when you kind of get into this more like Missouri, northwestern Kansas, definitely a lot of tree cover down this way. It opens up a little bit more once you kind of get more into Iowa and eastern Nebraska. The road network can be hit or miss and can be kind of not as gridded as some of like the high plains areas, for example. But the big thing here is that valley channeling is definitely a phenomenon that exists. If you think about some of the 2024 outbreaks that just pelted this region that year, valley channeling likely played a role in those outbreaks. And if we kind of just get into kind of what you could expect for views, for example. So see, sometimes you can get pretty flat terrain, but also you're still contending with some trees and undulating terrain. Here I'm top of a high point in order to see a supercell here. And then this photo, you can kind of see how there's multiple hills. This is in Nebraska, not far from Pilger, for the tornado history fans out there. And if you look at any of the Pilger footage from that day, you'll notice that there's a lot of chasers. Like they're dipping and weaving on these hills, and that's just a staple of the Missouri River Valley. Kind of moving up more into a very hyper specific region of Nebraska, the Sandhills. You've probably heard about it a couple of times before, but this is a particularly difficult region of the plains to chase. So just a ton of these continuous large hills that are all really tightly clustered that obscure visibility. And on top of that, very limited road network and civilization for that matter. A big chunk of this is Cherry County, which is a huge county in Nebraska. It's the size of Connecticut and has 6,000 residents. Just to put into perspective how sparsely populated this region of the country is. Worth noting too, with limited civilization, limited cell service. So definitely one of the cell service holes of the country for sure. And I would say the main thing that you can kind of have to bank on here is that there is a little bit of luck required, that you have a storm that's reaching maturity when it's in close proximity to a road, because I think there's like six main roads, maybe two or three east west and then another two or three north south. So, and then I would say the main meteorological theme here, it's one of two things, at least in my experience: southeast moving hailers or incredibly epic tornado producing supercells. The Whitman tornado in 2023, for example, that very few people saw, or last year, the April 27th day, which I had the fortune of seeing, which these two photos are on either end here. Um, this was the best photo that I had in terms of like really showing off the landscape of the Sandhills, just to get an idea. Like I'm on a high point of a road, but like you can just see all these little bumpy hills and stuff. and this storm is way off in the distance. And this is like the one high point I could take advantage of to see this storm because there's so little roads. I can't even get under this storm. I'm having to shoot it from 20 miles away. So that's something worth mentioning. And the other reason why I wanted to show this tornado photo in particular is I managed to kind of seek out this kind of like pond feature. And there's a big hill on this side and a big hill off frame here that I had to find. I got lucky that the tornado planted in the gap between the two hills next to this road. So it's a big luck game when it comes to the Sandhills sometimes. Working our way further north, we can kind of get into this can be kind of broken down a little bit more and more, but the northern prairie, um, which definitely extends up into Canada if you really want to, but kind of this northern stretch of Iowa up through southwestern Minnesota, and then up into North Dakota, just about as dream of a chase country as you can possibly have. Great road network, and I praise the southern southwestern Minnesota's road network. It's got incredible gravel roads, and so even when you're going off pavement, you have like these nice gravel roads that you're not going to worry about when they get wet. So particularly sneaky area of the country to chase. It's just that I feel like setups don't happen there very often unless if it's 2025, then eastern South Dakota and southwestern Minnesota like wake up all of a sudden. So yeah, 2025 was just the year of the Northern Prairie as far as I'm concerned, whereas 2024 was the year of the Missouri River Valley. So if we're talking about 2025 and some of the other notable events that have happened in this kind of regime or region is it's a later season thing. It's your hashtag Juning. If it's not a high plains type season, it's going to be happening out here, especially when you're getting some of those ridging type events that usually people kind of shut down in terms of, it's not the best look, but you have to kind of keep an eye out for some of those northwest flow events as they can kind of come up with some sneaky southeast moving supercell tornado days, or you get the stationary front and you get a giant, progressive derecho. Here's a couple of examples, kind of a cross sample through a couple of the states, just to kind of give you an idea. This is Minnesota, and you can kind of see nice and flat, nice road network, big shoulders that you can pull off on as a chaser, so you're not clogging up the roadway. Tons of wind turbines out there too, which I love having wind turbines as foreground items. Still some trees and stuff, but overall very flat. This is South Dakota. And this is kind of a little bit closer to the Missouri River towards the center of the state. But the main thing I can say is that the parts of the Dakotas, there's a lot of like these kind of, I don't know the geological term for it, but I call them glacial potholes. I've heard something similar to that where when glaciers were ripping down the plains, they carved out all these little like ponds and stuff. So there's a ton of ponds and like these little like very subtle undulations where there's just like a bunch of water collecting. So that's something to keep in mind. But the roads all work around that, so it's not usually a big concern. But just a lot of water up there. It's just kind of cool to see kind of the geological composition. And this is also South Dakota as well. So just awesome chase country, and definitely a place that I really like. So those are the areas I wanted to feature for today. I wanted to leave the room open for, diving into the Midwest and some other areas in the future, but um, let's open it up for some Q&A.
All right, Ethan. Thank you for taking us on a little journey through chasing country there.
Yeah, it's fun because it's like I feel like once you like we generalize so much of this, but like if you really start looking through the pictures, it's really cool to kind of see the landscapes evolve throughout the cross section of the US. But anyway.
Okay, so this is really cool. We're going to have some magic right now between you and I happening. So I was actually planning on doing a little powwow with all of our coaches sometime within the next month or two to really try and plan out the content that we would be doing for these group coaching sessions for the next year or two, since, that roughly comes out to like 5 to 10 sessions total for each of you guys.
Hmm.
And this is a topic that I really wanted to not only cover with broader strokes like what you actually just went through tonight,
Hmm.
I was really hoping to actually have a series where we even get like more down and dirty into each geographic area throughout the
Yeah,
country and
definitely.
really spend like maybe 15, 20 minutes a week or a session, not a week, but per session going into some of those really important features. Like in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, if you're chasing like the lower Mississippi Delta, there
Yep.
are only a few different places where you can cross. So, what is some of the
Yeah.
terrain looking like in those areas? And,
Yeah.
where should you be chasing supercells and what sort of direction would they be moving versus, when might you want to let those ones move off and try to find something else because you're going to be moving out of good terrain? I think that sort of stuff has a real practical utility for chasers.
For
And you
sure.
did a great job going over
Yeah.
the big picture of it all. And I think we can definitely in the future really like I
Yeah.
can see entire episodes just on
These, oh
specific
yeah.
areas.
I could do like 3 episodes on the Caprock alone. I feel
Yeah,
like I just
exactly,
love the
exactly.
cap. I love the Caprock. That's why. But
Dude, everybody loves the Caprock. Like the first thing Cameron and I ever talked about like 5 years ago, 6 years ago when I had him on Chaser Chat was about how he just loves Caprock magic and that's his favorite thing in the world.
oh yeah, yeah. That's on brand Cameron.
Yep. Absolutely. So you heard the man. The floor is open up for questions now. Greeny Boy wants to know if he can you come up on stage. All right, Greeny, I'll make an exception this one. Actually, I can't because I'm not even in the event right now. So, let me see. Can I bring you up on stage? Greeny, as a moderator, you should be able to pull yourself up on stage by the seat of your own pants if you right click your own. I
Oh, I'm
think
also
you have
not in the
that.
Discord right now. I should probably so I can hear him.
The only problem is if you go into the Discord, you're going to be listening to me and you talk. So that's why I
Oh
actually
yeah,
stayed out of the live event
that's
and
fair.
just have the chat pulled up. So, Greeny, if you can find a way to put yourself up on stage for a minute and then expediently remove yourself after you ask your question, I'm fine with it. But we might not have that capability at this moment. Uh, Greeny says he is up on stage. So, oh yeah, because he's not. You'd have to join the Zoom call. Sorry, this is riveting streaming right now. Yeah, because Ethan and I are on Zoom. We're not actually up on the stage. So if you start talking right now, Greeny, you'd actually be talking to the people in the audience, and we wouldn't be able to hear you. So, um, trying to
Sorry.
think what we could do here. Ty, if you want to send that link, just put it in the lounge chat, in our company lounge chat, the Zoom link. And Greeny, you can hop on if you have, assuming you have a Zoom set up. We'll let you jump on the call and talk for a minute. But Ethan, while we're waiting for that to happen, Nebraska WX Lover says, "What exactly is valley channeling?"
Okay, so valley channeling is at the surface, basically. So when you have like a river valley, right? You kind of like, if we're exaggerating it a little bit, like it's kind of shaped like this. The river is in between my hands. You kind of have rising terrain on one side, rising terrain on the other. So you have this big channel, right? And as you have surface flow moving, north, generally with the, most of these systems, you have pretty much mostly southern flow. What happens is that that surface feature can basically organize that flow better. And basically, it can create a localized area that really enhances that lower level flow that can increase tornado production. There's a couple of research papers that show that those types of terrain features can influence tornado production or supercell maturity.
Love it. Love that answer. I know that's something Trey and I have talked about a little bit before. He's retroactively went back and looked at some prior tornado events to see if that's what actually caused the sudden uptick in tornado genesis, and it's tends to be something that can really ramp things up in a very short period of time.
Yeah, not to
So,
make it about like about the June 1st tornado. I'm a strong believer that I mean it like I mean it's where it really picked up strength was like right in the heart of the Connecticut River Valley. And it kicked off tornado genesis once that supercell really dropped out of the Berkshires. So and then another one, Great Barrington tornado in 1995. And that dropped into the Housatonic River Valley. So yeah, valley channeling I think is a key player. I've just and like I said, there is research supporting it. In terms of how much, I don't have the empirical data to back it off the top of my head, but I know there is research that is supportive of that, that it's likely a factor in helping supercells with its surface-based characteristics.
Yeah, and anecdotally, like you said, it's just common sense, right? We
Yeah,
know that moisture convergence is something that is a positive for tornado genesis, and
for
so
sure.
you can't get much more
Yeah,
convergence than being narrowed down
yeah,
into a valley. So
exactly. Yeah, from the
it,
that's the thing I didn't even touch on was the moisture aspect of it too. It does that as well.
yep, absolutely. So, all right, Greeny does not have Zoom. Coward. We wanted to see your face on the call here. He just wanted to ask what Ethan's views are on the Great Saturday Bust and what are your opinions on chasing tomorrow. Are you chasing? He wants to know, by the way.
I'm probably maybe probably and like I haven't dove into it in too much depth yet. Like I'm gonna take a quick look later tonight, and then I'll have a much better idea tomorrow morning because I don't think I have to go too far. And I wake up at 6 anyway, so um yeah, and then I probably maybe, and then in terms of Saturday, I wasn't bothering with Saturday. I knew smoke was going to be a problem, and it looked messy to begin with. And I was, I already had plans ahead of time, so I was like, I don't know. I don't want to ditch my plans. There was brisket involved, so I did take a picture of a shelf cloud at the beach, though. That was cool.
You didn't want to risk it for brisket?
No, I was very, though I had to pay attention to the weather because, we had to move the smoker for, I was gonna find a picture of not the brisket, the shelf cloud. It was a very lame shelf cloud, all things considered, but from the beach, oh gosh, that's not gonna come show up at all. But you can kind of get the gist that there was and storm.
All right. Weaponized anxiety says wake up at 6 because you have to or because you want to. I hope it's the former.
Oh, I know I'm a morning person at heart. But like I don't know. I just everything like I've always been kind of a morning person. I reach a certain point in like the later half of the day where I crash and it's hard for me to like really keep the synapses firing, but I'm able to keep them firing for the Storm Chaser coaching fam.
We appreciate Ethan representing. Thank you very much.
I wish I was a night owl though. It's a quality that like I mean, it's so funny because I feel like so many, at least in like the YouTube space, feels like so many YouTube creators are very much like they grind edits throughout the night and I'm like getting up
Dude,
early.
that's me right there.
Yeah.
I get my best work done from like 10 p.m. until like 3 a.m.
Wow. Yeah, I am in REM at that point for sure.
Yeah, and I can confirm that when we were starting to map out the storm chasing forecast shows that we've started doing here on the YouTube channel, Ethan was invited, of course, as were all of our coaches, and he was like, "Man, if you recorded him in the morning, I would be up for doing some of this." He's like, "But
Yeah.
he's like, I can't be recording at like 10, 11 o'clock at night. That's just my
There would
brain's
just
not going to be working."
it would just be like 90% outtakes and it would just be me uh I'm trying to find a PC term
Yeah, no,
in
I
terms of what
totally
I
get
would,
it, man.
yeah.
Like, if you tried to get me, I know it's a little bit later, but if you tried to get me to record at like 3 or 4 a.m. when I'm starting to get tired, then I would not be up for that's a real thing, man. Fatigue is a real thing.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Kazaki asks, "What region do you think teaches new chasers the most?" And I think that's an
Oh.
interesting question because depending on what sort of lessons the person is looking to learn, I think there could be a few different answers. But just
Hmm.
generally speaking, Ethan, where do you think a person who's a newer chaser is going to experience let's say, the most rapid growth?
I would say at least from a like in terms of oh, that's a great question. I like this is not just because like it's like my favorite region to chase, but I think the Caprock in Texas is huge because it gives you the most flexibility in terms of making mistakes and being able to learn from them without sacrificing the experience itself. if that makes some sense. Yes, the dust is a problem sometimes, but what I will say is that there's a lot of like difference. Like it kind of, you can kind of, it can do the upslopey type thing. It does the, you get dry lines, you get outflow boundaries, you get like, early secondary surface low development down there sometimes. So, you can kind of get a little bit of everything down there and still like have an enjoyable experience, even if you do make mistakes. That's what I would say. Yeah, Caprock.
All right. Kazaki says, gotta wait for the slow mode before I ask the next question. Go ahead and just drop it in the main chat, Kazaki. I have the slow mode turned on because in the past we've had some people who attempted to speed run the group coaching questions channel and they mucked it up for everybody else. So,
Adding to the
um,
last question was that also storm motions are very friendly in the Caprock as well. So I'll leave
yeah,
that.
you're not
Yeah.
kidding, man. I've seen not only that, they can get a little weird sometimes. Like I've seen some
Hmm.
stuff moving like due south at 5 miles per hour.
Yeah.
You
Oh, I
just
love
sit
them when
there.
they're moving south. That's when they're like
Yeah,
really, when they're moving due south like that, they're usually really structuring. So, because that really enhances that low level component. Like if you think about the whole relative hodograph thing that Cameron loves to preach, like you're enlarging that hump in the lower levels from a relative perspective. So you're really getting that much more effective low level shear.
absolutely. All right, Kazaki dropped his question. Have you ever chosen a slightly worse meteorological target because the geography was significantly better?
Certainly. Definitely. I do that all the time in the Northeast. But I'm trying to think of a good example from some of the places I talked about today. They've dirt so I've had this is honestly more of a personal thing. If anything, this maybe not be exactly what you're looking for, but I've personally have like selected targets in like Western Kansas because I've wanted like a real like I've been rooting for Western Kansas to have a comeback in the worst way possible because I feel like Western Kansas is like just it's so incredible from a chasing perspective, but yet it's just like really floundered over the past couple of years. There's like a couple of like random events. And I don't count May 18th, 2025 because that was mostly nocturnal by the time it was in Kansas. And then Grinnell, well, I guess Grinnell and the Scott City Storm on that day were photogenic enough. Um, but anyway, it's like I've like have selected and it bit me on June 5th, 2025, the Lubbock cyclical supercell that planted like 12 tornadoes. I purposely went to Kansas that day because I was like I crazily enough to say like I was like sick of chasing Texas for like the past several days and I was like, "Oh, like I'm gonna be different and go to Kansas," and it bit me. But I'll say that the Sandhills Day, April 27th, 2025, I did I started in Kansas that morning because the terrain is usually more favorable and it was less of a drive from I kind of was putting myself in a position that was like if the cap broke in that area, it would be good. Even though I knew the Sandhills would be guaranteed. But eventually I ended up bailing to the Sandhills and caught the storm, but uh yeah. It's to answer your question, yes. Not to go too long-winded.
Love it. Kazaki again has another question. Love it tonight. He's coming in clutch. Have you found certain regions consistently produce storms that behave differently than expected? I
Differently than
think I think Fort
oh
Stockton area was one that you mentioned earlier, right?
yeah, Fort Stockton, hashtag Fort Stocktoning. Just doing things like just producing like very photogenic tornadoes in like a sounding that like is like extreme like it makes no sense. Like the saddest photograph you'll ever see with like a 49 dew point under like 90 surface temperature. Like it just doesn't make sense why there would be a tornado there, but Fort Stockton will just do things. I will say some of those like Central Plains areas, I was gonna do like a Central Plains beyond the classic area that I was talking about. I was gonna talk a little bit more like kind of that northern Kansas into southern Nebraska stretch because that's like that is a great stretch for chasing as well. But um, kind of some of those that, and then especially down into Oklahoma as well, you can get really slow moving storms that get the deviant motions, which we've talked about before, where you kind of get these really strong low level jets, and that when these storms like occlude, the tornadoes like slingshot. So that's always something. And that's particularly, I would say, more of like a southern-ish plains, or maybe just more of a plains bias in general, because I guess you can get like your Enderlins or your um, Garys for recency bias examples where you have kind of deviating tornado tracks where if the storm's moving slow enough and you have a strong enough low level jet, that's always something. So that's just something always to keep in mind in the plains, I would say. I'm trying to think of anything else that's maybe region specific, but um, yeah. I'll keep thinking if there's something that comes to mind, I might just blurt it out. But I think yeah, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to think super specific, but I don't have one off the top of my head.
Jenna HL says I chased back in the 1900s. Been wanting to get back into it. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Love that.
Yeah, Jenna, if you want to expand a little bit more on that, tell us what it was like then chasing back in the 100s. I'm guessing payphones and stopping at internet hotspots and like libraries and stuff like that. Was that even a thing? Was there library Wi-Fi back in like the mid
Not, I
1990s?
wouldn't, I wouldn't say. I think you just go to like the computers that they had because usually don't they have those like public computers? I remember going to like the computer lab at the library when I was a wee
Oh yeah,
lad.
yeah. I remember when I was in high school, all the kids would sneak away from lunch so they could go play RuneScape on the library computers. So
That's awesome.
there'd just be like a bot farm of kids before bot farms were even a thing, just like all spamming RuneScape in the library at lunch.
Yeah, they're like the Great Exchange or whatever,
Absolutely.
ripping it up.
Jenna says when I did it, we had pagers and payphones. That tracks. That's pretty cool, man. Like
Yeah.
Jenna, tell me what you think about this idea. So Trey and I have tossed around the concept of paleo chasing, of having maybe even like an annual competition where we get a group of notable storm chasers to all decide for a single day they're going to chase like they're actually back in the 1990s, and we're going to call it like the paleo chaseathon or something like that. I think it'd be a really cool community event. What do you think,
That
Ethan?
that was a video I had a video idea for the longest time of doing a chase with no 21st century technology and just like doing it Twister style almost, I guess. But the my main thing was is why I didn't do it was because I was like, I mean, if I guess if I lived out west, it would be a different story. But like, I didn't want to squander any possible opportunity to miss something.
No, that's totally fair. And like when you're
Yeah,
doing it just yourself, it's obviously you're probably a little greedier versus if we get like, 15, 20 people to buy into it, then I think it's more of like a
yeah,
community event and
for
everybody.
sure.
But yeah, I think it'd be really cool, and then to have like a person, just with an iPhone that can film the whole thing. So they're,
Yeah,
fly on the wall, here's the decisions, and the coach is talking about like, well, I guess I just have to go based off of what the clouds look like.
yeah,
Can't really look at
exactly.
radar. So
Yeah, I would on it like if I were doing it, it would have to be a Tex. It would have to be like I hate to keep saying Caprock, but like it would have to be a Texas Caprock day because it's
I'm
like
glad we didn't set that up as a drinking game before the
yeah, I
show because
know.
all the people watching would just be passed out right now.
Yeah, well, because it's like I could just watch like I know I could see the dry line from miles and miles away, and I could have a general sense of like I mean if I printed out like the plot that morning or whatever, I could have a good enough idea of finding the outflow boundary at least at the start of the day, so I have a general idea of where it might end up and approximate later on in the afternoon where it'll probably be. So that's kind of where
Okay,
I.
so here's what we do. We have easy mode. We do three different videos escalating in difficulty. We do like easy mode in the Caprock. Then we do like medium difficulty. That's maybe what like Southern Iowa, something like that. Definitely
Yeah,
have
Southern
more.
Iowa's big. Yeah, that would be tough. Especially like I mean, it depends. Like if it's southeastern Iowa is actually like kind of gnarly.
Yeah.
Um, but Yeah, no, continue.
Then we have hard mode in Dixie Alley.
Dixie Alley, yeah. Dixie Alley, that's just like torture.
Can
Or
you
like
imagine trying to chase with no
Minnesota Arrowhead.
technology in Dixie Alley?
Yeah, honestly, what's
Dude,
worse than Dixie Alley in my opinion is the Minnesota Arrowhead. When you get past like Brainerd, Minnesota and like up towards Duluth. It's like, how about this? Like, let's take the trees of Dixie Alley, add some and add just like a million lakes and
yeah.
just make nothing make sense. And yeah, and you're just chasing like some stupid supercell into Great Michigan or the Lake Superior or whatever.
And Jenna says cloud watching was how we did it at Weather Channel in the morning, and then in all caps, not Dixie Alley.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think, and then JG Whitworth says extreme mode is the Northeast. Yeah, like we wait for there to be a setup in downtown Boston, and then we
Oh,
just we throw everybody out there on a bicycle, and we just see what happens.
just get on top of the Prude and just photograph it from there. Go to Watch Hill Observatory or Blue Hill Observatory
Yep, I love it. That's freaking
for
awesome.
the Massachusetts in chat.
All right, we're going to take one last question here from Nebraska WX Lover, unless I see any other questions pop up here in the next like 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll bounce out of here for the evening. Nebraska WX Lover asks, what are your engineer thoughts on the social media interceptor phenomenon?
Oh, that's interesting. That's actually that's a really great question because this is going to bring in a personal philosophy that's going to be um so don't get me wrong, interceptors are cool and I understand their appeal, especially to a subset of storm chasing audience. I understand their appeal. And I understand why a lot of people gravitate towards them without getting into, why that is. But uh, what I will say is, you couldn't catch me in either the TIV or the Dominator 3 in a sizable tornado. I wouldn't, and I'd even be cautious about something that looks harmless. Maybe that's just my level of risk aversion compared to others, but just having an understanding of what is capable or what those wind speeds are capable of and what debris at speed is capable of. There's just I that's just not something that I want. I just don't like the number game there, even though it's already low enough numbers to get into anything to begin with. But um, all it takes is the wrong situation for it to go horribly wrong in either the Tiv or Dominator. Never mind what people are building now on social media. So uh, it's cool that they're building projects that they love. I'm all for building things like that. Would I ethically endorse them actually using them the way that they intend? Probably not. And I would actually probably advise against it. I don't want to crush people's dreams, but uh, my level of risk aversion is not that. That is there. Yeah.
All right, well, I'll play the bad cop here, and I appreciate your diplomacy in the matter. I'm going to say that I fully support the storm chasing accelerationism that we see
hmm
occurring right now with people wanting to build these vehicles and drive them into tornadoes. I just ask two things. The first one is that please make sure the camera is always rolling because when the worst happens, I want to watch it the same way people watch those like airline disasters television shows and
Oh,
stuff.
that's just the human nature
Yeah,
is
yeah,
morbid curiosity.
yeah. If you're gonna drive into a tornado, just keep the camera rolling, buddy. I wanna watch
Yeah.
this. Number two is I think this should actually be across the board for all storm chasers. This may be controversial. I think all storm chasers should take like a pact, like ethically, to never request any emergency services whenever they're out storm chasing if they get hit by a tornado. And if that means you got to be like Ryan Gosling's character bleeding out on the steps at the end of the new Blade Runner movie, then so be it. Like you made your bed, now you got to lie in it. But I think that's probably my biggest problem with storm chasing is that I do think the detractors have a legitimate gripe when they say you're out there storm chasing and you could potentially be taking away attention from people who really are affected and who need
Yeah.
that
Not even that, but like it's like like storm chasers like are kind of resource hogs. Like I've watched gas stations go completely dry because of storm chasers, which is nuts. It's happened on 2 occasions that I can remember. Um, so yeah, we're we're interesting. And I'm not like it's like I'm definitely not like a I don't want to I hate like the kind of the old head argument of like back in my day like da, ba, da, ba, da, ba, ba. But and I'm all for because it's like I'm like oh like I'm completely aware of the fact that like I'm part of the problem and like storm chase like anyone that has like an any sort of audience in the storm chasing space is like you're contributing to it. So you can't like come back around and start sorry, concert voice still. But um like you can't be like, streaming to, thousands of people and then coming back around and saying like all these new chasers, what the heck, man? Like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's the most disingenuous shit in the world when
Yeah.
people do that. Like they don't understand what the consequences of their actions are going to be. If I advertise to a bunch of young people with testosterone flowing and time to kill that there's this awesome extreme thing that I could be doing and I put it on YouTube for everyone to see, what do I think is going to happen the next time an opportunity rolls around? It's like,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's really silly. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like people are going to do it, and if you're going to do it, just like don't screw over the people who had no choice. The people who got their home slabbed
Yeah,
because they just
exactly.
happened to live in the path. Don't be hogging up the resources. Don't be calling EMS. Don't be blocking the roads or anything like that. And just be courteous. And there's definitely a line in the sand somewhere. So just do your best to try to stay away from it, whatever it is that ethically you think that line is. That's I think the best we can do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if there's a way to like actually like make that like how do you like make like unify everyone on the fact that we can't take emergency or elect not to take emergency services or whatever, but I'm not sure how that would work, but
Yeah, I
um
mean, you can ask other chasers, right? Like,
yeah,
just
yeah,
find a
yeah.
like you can, like somebody help me get to the hospital, but don't you dare call an ambulance. Like, that's it's just that that's the price of the game, my
Yeah,
friends.
we can help each other type of thing, if
Yeah,
anything.
exactly, and like that's just the way it should be. So,
Yeah.
I do see a couple a couple of funny comments. JG Whitworth says, "If you get into an accident while chasing and get injured, does that count? Provided you aren't at fault. No, if it's a no fault accident, somebody else causes an accident, then by all means call the EMS. I'm talking about people specifically that are trying to drive into tornadoes.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
how
yeah.
this whole conversation started. Was the social media interceptor crews and stuff. So I'm not going to tell them not to do it, but also just understand that at one point we're going to see a video where one of these vehicles gets picked up and flung across the horizon, and everybody should just be ready for it because it's going to happen.
Yeah. It was funny. I think one of the interceptors that people have been talking about recently, I think it's like the base of it is like a Saturn TR1, and like honestly, my first thought was my my fir- my first thought was I was like, I'm surprised there's a Saturn TR1 that still exists. Like I'm surprised it's not in a it's been scrapped 15 years ago. Never mind, like it's still like uh it was just like it was like out of all cars that it could be, I was like, wow, like I don't know. It was just really funny to me.
Yeah, that is for on multiple levels
Yeah.
hilarious. So,
I'm like, it won't even make it to the target area, but anyway.
yep,
Oh
yep.
shit.
All right, do have a couple more questions here.
Yep.
So, Kazaki, posting it here now since slow mode is done. How much time do you spend studying maps before a chase? So, yeah,
Oh, that's
preparation
interesting.
even.
I would say not as much anymore. I think just because like I've been to every corner of like reasonable chase country. And also my native Northeast, I know understand most of the areas that I know a lot, but I'm also a child that's a product of loving the early like I still use Google Earth like pretty much daily, and like I love Google Earth, and my favorite, like, a lot of people they do like Wordle or whatever in the morning or their connections. I do Map Tap, which is like just like a five guess game where you like pick cities around the country or around the world, sorry. So like that game's my jam. I love looking at maps. So that's just like part of my existence as it is, never mind chasing. So I would say not as much anymore in like my pre-chase scouting or anything like that, just because I've been to a lot of the areas that I either cover now or have been to like on chase trips or whatever.
Yeah, we definitely need a GeoGuessr storm chasing edition.
I think there is one.
Okay.
His name's Jason Robbins, and I think he made something. I think it's a um, well, I've actually made, so I've made a GeoGuessr map that is just EF5 and EF4 paths or something like that. I
Okay.
have to update it for 2025, I think, and or 2026. But it's like all violent tours in the EF scale era, and I picked out pins specifically in all of the paths, like in the middle of the paths. I wish you could put the time back to like when the damage happened, but um, you can kind of see some of the areas like how tornado damaged they still are. It's kind of interesting. Um, but I did that, and then but I think there's like a game where it's like it shows like the event or something, and you have to guess what event it was. I haven't played the game yet, but I know it's out there because I've seen people post about it.
Yeah, I
Storm
wanted to do
Guesser or
something like that
something.
with. I want to do something like that with Trey. That way we
Hmm.
could call him Train Bolt.
It's a beautiful day to use your noggin or whatever he says.
That guy. What is your what is your verdict on him? Is he actually doing that or is he cheating? He has to be
Oh
cheating.
no, I think he's good. I think he's legit. I watch
Okay.
his videos pretty frequently, and he's not even the best. He's just like the best at like marketing like doing the social media side of it. And he does things outside of GeoGuessr too. He's really good at um like he'll find like someone like he'll it was like a person on a flight, and he's like they took a picture, and he like takes the photo that he saw and finds the exact flight and what seat they're sitting on in the airplane type of thing. Like he can do
That's
things
insane.
like outside of like just like the Google Maps stuff, which is pretty insane. And so I think he just has like a real knack for like really getting into the weeds of like puzzles.
Yeah,
And
that how does that guy not have a television
yeah.
deal
Oh
or
yeah. Well, he
like a
does like
Netflix show?
I think one of his like video subcategories he takes like CIA tests and like FBI like people that like, doing like kind of like
Yeah.
that really like, real head gamey type learn yeah. So
Yeah, it sounds like he could be part of the remember the cicada, I think it's cicada 3301 or something.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not
Yeah,
familiar with
man.
but I know like I'm surface level familiar enough. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that stuff's always fascinating to me. So Greeny Boy asks, "What are your opinions on the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania in regards to chasing? Looking to be there tomorrow since the terrain seems pretty decent on maps, but since you have more experience, I want to know if you've chased it before."
Let me just make sure it's the valley that I am thinking that it is. But if it is the valley that I think it is, great. If you're in between the ridges, obviously, Lehigh, because that's like Allentown-ish, right? Like Allentown through Kutztown and Lehigh Valley, PA images. Yeah, because that's like Allentown, right? Yeah. Be like east of Allentown's kind of a pain. But once you get west of Allentown, you kind of head down towards like that corridor down towards Reading. Definitely much more enjoyable. Yeah, just southeastern Pennsylvania is like the best in the northeastern United States in terms of chasing. Um, Mohawk Valley slash Finger or like north of the Finger Lakes, like into New York's wine country. That's like a second place. That would be second, I would say, in terms of like the northeast states, uh, in terms of quality chasing
And
terrain.
real quick, he did post a picture followed up. It's basically the entire area west of Allentown.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty good. Like yeah, you still have like those ridge style mountains, but if you're in between those, it's pretty good. And east of them is really good. Not quite Schuylkill County. Schuylkill County, you're definitely in the sticks.
All right, Ethan, I think that is going to wrap things up here this evening. Appreciate you giving your presentation and also inspiring me with some ideas for content we can create in the future. And of course, thanks to everyone in the audience who hung out with us here. And may all of you be tapped to join the Cicada 3301 project in the future. We could
Thanks,
definitely,
Gabe.
I think with the collective brain power in our Discord community, we could definitely make some progress on that. So
I
have a good
mean,
one, Ethan.
yeah, I might be at high RPMs already, but we'll see if there's a little more RPM to dedicate.
Cool, cool. See you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, see ya.